after we're ready.
Yeah, we will post the link next time. Okay, I muted the YouTube. All right, welcome everybody. Let me hit record. Welcome everybody to Practical Spirituality here in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. And for many years, I was doing Practical Spirituality live in the old city of Jerusalem, overlooking the Temple Mount. And with COVID, the Practical Spirituality kind of closed down because there was no one around. And now that we're after COVID, there's still no one around, especially during a war. So what I'm planning to do, please God, is every day from 12 to 1 Eastern, 9 to 10 Western, and Jerusalem 7 to 8 is to do Practical Spirituality every day so people can tune in and we can all grow together and make sure that our hearts and minds are in the right place in our avodas Hashem, in our service of Hashem. And it's for anyone. You can ask a question. You can ask any questions. There's no not kosher question. So whatever it is you want to ask, you can ask. And yeah, we'll develop together, all of us. I'm not going to ask you guys to ask me a question yet because you're probably not ready to. So I will pick a topic. And I think that, I don't mind doing multiple topics. And if anyone has a question, please, you can raise your hand and ask it, or you can just type it in. Either way is fine with me. What I'd like to do is bring up the topic of Jews being free to go wherever they want. I'm not sure what his name was, but I guess he was the minister of like external things. I see someone already asked a question. Good. YouTube, you can also ask questions in the comments, and I will check that sometimes. But I'm going to start with the topic. A lot of Jews are jet setters. We like to run around the world quite a bit, and me as a surfer, I particularly do. But I also really enjoy spending time with my wife on trips. And we take trips. We'll just fly to somewhere random, get off the plane. We don't even know where we're going. We don't know where we're staying. And we just start the trip. And it's a real trip, because if you make no plans, then Hashem is like totally running the whole thing, and amazing stuff happens. So we've been in different countries and done this. Since October 7th, we're seeing a radical Islamist jihad style thing happening in each country. Some minister of Israel went on to say that Jews shouldn't be traveling anywhere. He meant even in the US. And he said that, and if they do have to travel, then they should do so without any external signs of being Jewish. Which is a bit of a strange thing, considering, like, what is a guy who looks like me supposed to do? External signs of being Jewish. Like, what do I do? How do I hide myself being Jewish? And do I want to live that way? Are we supposed to take the mezuzahs off our doors too? No more mezuzahs on our door. That's a mitzvah. And am I supposed to not go anywhere? And if I do go somewhere, am I supposed to hide the fact that I'm Jewish? And this is like extremely uncomfortable to have such a request. Now, of course, right now we're in an emergency, so it's like I'm not going to be that worried about it right now. But I mean, just in the future, I like traveling with my wife. I like to travel with my kids. Never been anywhere where people weren't very friendly to us. It's definitely a minority that are the dangerous ones, but that minority, you still can run into them. And right now they are feeling, I think, extra they're feeling extra bold, or should we say brazen, and maybe it's not such a safe time to be moving around. I don't have a solution for this. Meaning, I came into generally in this work, I'm going to come up with solutions for things and work them out with you, with my understanding of things, my understanding of Torah. This particular one, I don't have a direct answer for this. I can just tell you that it feels lame. It feels lame to be under that kind of scrutiny. And not the word scrutiny, being exposed to danger just for being a Jew. Now, I walk around Israel all the time, as well as hundreds of thousands of people who look just like me. We're all over Israel all the time, and there's a mutual respect that we get with our Arab population and that we give them. So meaning I'm constantly, when you live in Israel, you're constantly in touch with Arabs, and they're just like, they're not expecting us to stop them from, prostrating on the ground when it's their prayer times. So too, they're not expecting us to put away our payas or anything like that. There's a mutual respect. Obviously, any of those people could be radicalized, and obviously the radical population is very strong right now. But I know for a fact, after 33 years living in Jerusalem and traveling all over the country, that there's a mutual respect. That generally is how things go. Don't know. Again, I told you I don't have the answer for this one. I'll check comments real quick just to see what people had to say about it. And I see someone asked a question over there. Let me just check YouTube, see if we got any questions on YouTube. YouTube, where are the comments? I guess no one's commented on YouTube at this point. Yeah, no comments on YouTube. So I'll go back to our comments. We have a question here. In the West and all over the world, the spread of Islamic Jihad is overtaking the world in many different levels. Political parties, universities, and the simple person on the streets. The question, what can we do to stop this evil ideology from overtaking the world? I think, so the question is how to stop it. I don't know if stopping it is possible. And I don't know if it would really take over the world. The concern is that there's always, throughout history, always two major opponents of the Jewish people. One opponent has been the world of Esav. That was, remember, it goes Abraham, and then Ishmael, father of the Arab world, and then Isaac, father of the Jewish world. And then Isaac has two kids, Esav, the father of the European world, which became the Christian world, and the father of Jacob, his twin brother. And what you'll find throughout history is we have always had a major issue with and serious, heavy-duty anti-Semitism from both Ishmael and from Esav, meaning from the Islamic populations and the Christian populations, which is more of a European thing. Christians have never liked us very much. Today, they seem to think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but when you press them, on it, they just can't wait to get the Jew to become a Christian. And that's one. And the other is that if you did the actual math of who we've had more anti-Semitism from, Christians have way outdone Islamists in anti-Semitism. Islamists, we've been second-class citizens in many countries, and there have been, pretty heinous pogroms, but being expelled hasn't happened much. Yeah, it's very different. Whereas Christianity has, like, systematically, and I'm using that word specifically, systematically tried to wipe us out many, many times. And when I say Christianity, I'm also talking about the European world, because that's all the children of Esav. And in its very worst form was the Nazi Germany was the ultimate form. And let me explain what I mean by systematically. There's two major things that happen in the world. There's the world of chaos and the world of order. Chaos and order. So actually, maybe if you're watching this, it's mirrored. So chaos and order. Yeah, this is your right, Shy, over there. Yeah, am I pointing to your right? Chaos and order. So for example, this tea in my cup is chaos. The glass is order. Chaos and order. So the whole world works like this. So for example, the sun shoots its heat in chaos. The ozone layer and the distance from the sun is the order to make it a usable, inhabitable earth. My guitar, when it's over there, when I strum my strings in an open way, when I strum the strings open, so it is chaos. But if I order my fingers on the fretboard, limiting those strings, so that's order. Now, Yishmael is the directest, he is Abraham's first child who represents total chaos. Total chaos. And you see the chaos is exactly what they're doing. Think how they shoot their rockets. Their rockets are chaos. They're going to land there, they'll land here, they'll land on them, they'll blow up their own hospitals. It's absolute chaos. They're just lobbing random rockets. Now, it's not that other Arab countries don't have guided missiles, but I promise you they didn't make them. Those were made by Western countries. Esav, the father of Westernism, is all about order. There's even stories of trains that hit Auschwitz that came too early, so they sent the train away. It's like the whole point was to kill the Jews in the train, but the train came too early, and the people receiving the train didn't know what to do with themselves. So the Jews were saved on that train because it went away, it went back. Order. They were able to kill 6 million Jews plus millions and millions of other people, all like in a sanitary fashion, like perfectly hidden from the view of man, and of course gas chambers. Like what cleaner way can you wipe out an entire population and then burn the evidence? So it's very Western. And Western, when you mechanize war the way Westerners do, whoa, it's super, super dangerous, super, super harsh. And so here we are in a very strange situation, because we got Westerners who are pro-Israel for the most part, maybe because of the common fear, because the radical Islam considers Christians and Westerners infidels. They're all considered infidels, and infidels are punishable by death. Now, obviously, only a jihadist would actually think punishing them to death would be a fun thing to do. I think the average, more moderate Muslim would consider, killing people as his cup of tea. But there is a large population of radical Muslims who are interested in that. And they're creating chaos on the streets and chaos at the capitals and chaos and chaos and chaos. The Westerners are like, whoa, but here's the crazy thing. And perhaps now finally the bankruptcy of the woke progressive left. As you all know, the woke progressive left has been, kind of on a suicide mission. And I don't mean suicide bomber mission. I mean, it's suicide, just kill themselves. They're creating a movement and culture that cannot be sustained. It's just nuts, absolutely nuts, and expecting everything to be. I mean, it's worse than communism in a way, because communism itself was communism itself recognized that different people need different things. Like there's a difference among people. Yeah, let's spread out the wealth, but just not everyone's the same here. And but these people have set up this oppressor and oppressed narrative that the Jews are the oppressor. And so now you have Westerners on university campuses, Westerners in city streets, who are protesting in honor of the very people who would kill them for their values, for their, the progressive liberal values. They're now protesting in favor of those who would have their heads on sticks and parade them around town for their woke ideals that are the very woke ideals as the children of Esav, because we're talking about Westerners, siding against Israel. So it's very interesting. But what this may be is a bankruptcy. I heard someone recently say that that the end of the hippies in the 60s was the Charles Manson murders, where a hippie cult wound up like getting involved in murder. So it like showed the final bankruptcy of the hippie society. And then from then on, like things moved into a new, things progressed into a new stage after the hippie 1960s. So too, October 7th may become, if there's anything positive about that day, it may become a benchmark of the full bankruptcy of the woke liberal left, which may have and most likely will have a giant impact on the next elections, because they will be seen as the fools they are. I know they're not being seen as fools right now. They're being seen as, these scary, freaked out protesters. But how long is that going to last? Now that they're finally trying to go to bed with radical Islamists, how long's that going to last? That's not going to last too long. And they will have to wake up. The woke will have to wake up, and realize that they're going to need a major reality check. So we find ourselves sandwiched, and for sure, Esav seems to be like all excited about us. We're getting all the backing we need from the Western countries to put an end to the radical situation we're in with radical Islam. And I'm not even going to say Hamas. I prefer not to say Hamas, even though it's a word straight out of the Torah for like absolute chaos and destruction. But I don't like using that word, because we think, oh, the other radicalists are any different. They're not. And it's all the same radicalism. So the question is, can we put an end to it? I don't think so. And the question is, can we slow it down? I don't think so. And the question is, can we maybe prevent more people from joining? There's one more thing that I would like to share, and that is that there is something called anti-Semitism, which is real. I mean, there is anti-Semitism is its own thing, and it has no reasons. How do you know it has no reasons? Because whatever reasons they give, the opposite reason also works. Tell us because we're poor, then they'll say it because they're rich. Meaning we've been called poor, believe it or not, in other generations where we're like parasites on the society, we're the poor ones. But then you'll see they go after us when we're rich. If you tell us we're the underdog, then they'll tell us, and they hate us. Then they'll tell us they hate us because we are the power, the ones in power. Like no matter, they'll tell us basically every reason they've ever hated us, the opposite reasons also why they hated us. So that's not why they hate us. Now, there's an amazing seminar called Why the Jews, and it's about to be live at Aish Torah. Aish Torah is going to do a live Why the Jews. If someone reminds me, I can send that link out. But the link's already there. It's by a famous rabbi / historian named Ken Spiro. And Ken just actually sent me a message telling me where to find Why the Jews. I think it's very important for all of us to check out Why the Jews. Let me just hear this real quick.
Sorry, I just saw this now. I was in South Africa for 12 days. Go to my website and kenspiro.com and
kenspiro.com. Ken Spiro. You can remember that from the word 10 Spiros. kenspiro.com. Ken Spiro. Spiro, which is interesting because his name comes from the word spire, and spire is one of the 3 Jewish communities along the Rhine on Black Sabbath, which is what Israel's now calling October 7th, is called the Shabbat HaShachor, which is interesting because it was Simchas Torah, which is our focus, but they call it Shabbat HaShachor. But where does that term Black Sabbath come from? It comes from when the Christians on the Rhine River in Germany, they went and killed every Jewish man, woman, and child in the city of Mainz, the city of Worms, and the city of Speyer. And the guy who wrote the book, Why the Jews, and has a webinar online, you can watch it, is called Ken Spiro from the town of Speyer. Those are Jewish towns, actually. Jewish towns have amazing Torah scholarship, and they were completely wiped out. I mean, they made October 7th look like Disneyland compared to what they did to them. And they weren't even offered to convert; they were just wiped out. Now, speaking of being offered to convert, I just want to mention that. Did you notice any offer for us to convert by the radical Islamists? Not exactly. No offer to convert. But in truth, I think maybe they also know we're not going to convert because we're the Jewish people. Like, you're not going to give up. Not going to give up the original formula for anything else. You'll notice the only Jew you'll ever meet who becomes Christian or Islamic is a Jew who didn't know Judaism to begin with. But a Jew who actually knows Torah, it's like not unheard of, but practically unheard of that he ever would become of Christianity or Islam. That should tell you something, by the way. There is the exceptions I know about are people who have seriously impaired IQs. You'll find anyone who, in general, you'll find anyone who's singing slogans and going behind a basically irrational movement of any kind. If you find people doing that, they're generally the lower IQ types. Now, but with anti-Semitism, it doesn't matter what your IQ is. It is the endless hatred, and it's inside of all people. And I'll just let you know the climax of and the answer of why the Jews is that we represent the conscience of humanity. Think about it. Before the giving of the Torah, what's conscience? What's right and wrong? Like, what is that? It was just generation after generation of nomadic people. I'm sure they had some natural sense of morality. If you hurt me, it hurts. So maybe I shouldn't hurt someone else. But you'll notice most people hurt even exactly where they were hurt. So hurt people hurt people. People wound where they're wounded. So, but nevertheless, there's no concept of morality until the prophetic experience of Mount Sinai. That was the beginning of prophecy, and not meaning national prophecy, and then given in book form, and you can order it on Amazon. By the end of Moses's life, he transcribed the whole prophecy into what we call the Torah, 5 books of Moses. Later, with the other prophets canonized in there, and yeah, if someone doesn't turn on their screen on this Zoom call, this class is going to go downhill quick. So if someone can have their screen on, it would, there's no way I'm going to be talking to a camera right now. That's where I draw the line. So the 18 people on Zoom, feel free to have your camera on. You don't have to as long as someone else is on. Right now I have 2 people. Thank you, Yankee and Shy. Yeah, Yankee's enough Shy if you have to do something. Yankee, you can keep yours on a little bit. Cool. Anyway, moving along, the answer is we're the conscience of the world. Now, you would think that's a good thing to be the conscience of the world. Like, great, tell us what to do. But you want to know something? The only one I know people in business who didn't want anyone to tell them what to do, and they lost their shirt in business because they didn't want anyone to tell them what to do. They wanted to make it on their own. They wanted to do it my way. Well, people don't like being told what to do. And the Jewish people represent the conscience of humanity for all of history. That's who we are. We're the conscience of humanity. And, if I followed you around or some other observant Jew followed you around an entire Sabbath, let's say a guy's not observant, and an observant Jew follows you around the whole Sabbath telling you, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. You'd also want to kill him by the end of Shabbos. By the end of the Sabbath, you'd be ready to kill the guy. Well, we are that for the entire planet. When a Christian or a Muslim are on their way to the church or the mosque, respectively, and they pass by a Jew, even if he's a secular Jew, his name is Chris Schwartz, and he's not even observant, but because he exists, he's walking the planet 3,335 years after the giving of Torah means the covenant's forever. It's true. It means the covenant's real, which means your time at the mosque or the church is going to be destroyed by this. By just seeing Chris Schwartz mowing his lawn. And Chris Schwartz is mowing his lawn on like Rosh Hashanah, which came out on a Sunday while they're on their way to church or the mosque. He doesn't know his behind from his elbow about Judaism. But the fact that he exists is testimony. He is living testimony, edus, that it's true, that Torah is true. Well, that same Torah that's true said that you'll be an eternal nation. You're part of an eternal covenant. There's no, there's not going to be another. We're not going for the Kirkland version. There's no Kirkland version of this. And there doesn't need to be. But in case you're thinking that I don't think there's a place for Christianity and Islam, you should know that God has his ways. And the Jews did a lousy job. We just did a horrible job. And we have not really been much of a light to the world at all. We lost our chance to be the light of the world from the orb of Israel and Jerusalem. That we lost altogether. And then we got scattered around the world. And since then, you see that Christians are a hell of a lot better than we are at this. Got over 1 billion Christians, over 1 billion Muslims. I think they're like 2 billion Christians. So it's like, there's what to be said about that. It's certainly not something a Jew would ascribe to, or at least one with a regular IQ or one who's been raised in the actual Torah. But it is they have they've done a hell of a lot better selling Coca-Cola than we have. But nevertheless, we still represent that, and the world can't take it. Because we are the conscience of the planet. And that includes all the secular people. The secularists who are not Christian, they're not Muslim, they're not Hindu, they're not Buddhist, they're not Mormon, they're not any of those things. They're just atheists, secularists. Except, what are we doing here then? How did you get here? What are we doing here? And of course, Judaism is just like the Big Bang. We're the ones who say the world came from nothing. And you're like, oh, it's about time physicists figured that out. That the world came from absolute nothing. Shkoyach. Yeah, you figured it out, physicist. Good job. Then again, the physicists, they're it's a little hard to have a physics discussion about something that precedes space and time. But you'll notice that the Jewish tradition in mysticism is right on the money for whatever science has figured out. And we are just a problem for everybody. And now you can understand if they want to hate us, they'll come up with a reason. They'll say because we're manipulating the banks and the mortgages and they'll say that we're overrepresented in this, that, or the other field, and they'll say we're leeches or parasites. Then they'll give their reason, but their true reason is because we are the conscience of humanity. And so, how are we going to fix this? Before I take the next question, and we're not going to go so long today, but before I take the next question, I just want to mention that it's hard for me to believe that this is gonna end well. I think that it's gonna end very well, but it's gonna end extra well. It's not gonna end well. It's gonna end fantastic. It's going to end amazing. But it might only get to that fantastic part when the world finally screams out, and especially the Jews scream out and ask God to save us. Not the IDF, and not President Biden, not President Trump, and not the Iron Dome or the Aero missiles. None of that stuff. But just simply calling out to Hashem. Just calling out to Hashem. Someone asked if this is a group internegative belief. You mean, Nusi, you're asking about the Gentiles? That was one of the questions on my chat. A group A and B, meaning the Gentiles feel this like...
Yeah. How do you explain this in terms of the possible you? Like with a bunch of people hating, a bunch of people fighting, and a bunch of people feeling like garbages and that.
Right. Yeah. A very interesting question. And it's really about, and there's also acceptance and approval, meaning Islamists don't have to approve of Jews or Christians or atheists. They don't have to approve. They can disapprove, but they can still accept. And certainly we're bringing up some negative beliefs in Gentiles because they're just going nuts right now against us. And their survival strategy is, well, let's just get rid of the Jews, which is really a shame because how are you supposed to get rid of the Jews? We're eternally here. You can't get rid of us. It's like whack-a-mole. As soon as you hit the thing there, it pops up over there. The whack-a-mole game in front of the supermarket. Wherever you try to whack the Jew, he pops up somewhere else. And then he's, and within like 5 years, he's winning a Nobel Prize or something. We're like the opposite of the black community in America. They were enslaved. They were brought to American slavery, and they like, with exceptions, obviously, but many of them never got traction ever again. The Jews, we went from the worst slavery, way worse slavery. We're talking about slave encampments in Europe, where to live another day was practically impossible, even to make it through another day. And then when the camps were finally liberated, everyone was like, a whole population of people that looked like the Ethiopian starving people with the swollen skulls, distended bellies, toothpick arms. They've been tortured in the worst trauma ever. Within 10 years, they were like running the US. Banking, real estate, in Hollywood, you name it. They were at the top. In business, psychology, universities, medicine. It's like 10 years later, top of the world. And meanwhile, for the black community, you got to become a basketball pro to get out of the ghetto over there. It's really, we're very interesting people, but we don't stop popping up. But we're the descendants of Joseph, because meaning where Joseph is one of the 7 shepherds, and he's the 6th of the 7th, and the 6th, he keeps rising up. He just, as soon as he gets thrown in a pit, he comes right back out. And every time he comes out, he goes to a higher position, but down in the pit, back up, down in the pit, back up. And so it's like, we can't not succeed. And there's a reason why we keep succeeding, is because we are a pilot nation. I think we're a drunk pilot nation. I think the pilot's drunk. We're like, if anything, we're making the world nuts from our own nuts, because Jews are nuts, and like it's like God couldn't have chosen a less faithful people. No offense to the Jewish people, but we are like, you want to find an atheist, like a real serious, like committed atheist, you're gonna have to find a Jew, and because we're like whatever we do the best, so we're going to be the best atheist as well. And I was raised atheist by atheists, anyway, it's going to end amazing, but it may only end when God hears us call Yishmael, when God hears us call out. Because look at the different holidays. Purim, only when the Jews called out. Hanukkah, when the Jews lashed out. But you gotta, and interestingly, when there's a spiritual attack, we react physically. So during Hanukkah, they were cool with us being Jewish. I'm sorry, they were cool with us being alive physically, but they wanted us to take on Greek culture. They wanted us to drop Judaism. So we attacked physically. So when they want our souls, to get rid of our souls, we attack physically. When they want us physically, like the Purim story, when they want to just kill us, there's no conversion option. So then we react spiritually. So it's very likely that our being pressed by Yishmael, and God will hear. That's the name. God will hear. That maybe he's supposed to hear us call out. But the problem with that is that who's calling out to God? It's like either you're a business, you could be an observant Jew and call out to God, but even the observant Jews, like you can barely get a whole minyan to stay around for Psalms for the worst hostage crisis in our lifetimes. And you can barely get a minyan of Jews to say Psalms after the prayers. Most just walk out after our prayers, and hopefully someone remembered even the fact that we have Jewish hostages going on. But it's really hard for us to call out, really hard. And a large proportion of Jews don't pray at all because they're not observant. They're not part of that. They don't believe in it. But they will pray. They will cry out, because when you squeeze the Jews, you get orange juice. And and it could be that because there is such a thing as Jews who spontaneously call out. There's even a story that one of the tortures the Nazis did was a psychological torture. They took the curtain that covers the ark in every synagogue. They took the curtain and cut it in two and put it as the curtain going into the gas chambers. They had this at one point, the gas chambers. And one of the most common things embroidered onto a parochis, the curtain of the ark, is the words, Pischuli sha'ar tzedek avovam. Open for me the gates of righteousness, and I will go through them. And there are stories that there were Jews who were part of the whole German atheist, we're Germans now, we're not part of the Jews, which, they thought they could like some of those Jews on campus were trying to pretend they're part of the Muslims, they're meaning not that they're saying they're Muslim, but we're with them. Yeah, let's see how the Muslims treat those guys. Who knows what we're going to see. So anyway, long story short is that there were German Jews who were secular their whole lives, are raised by atheist parents, and they got to those gates and they saw the Torah curtain open to the gas chamber. And there were those who did tshuva on the spot and started singing songs from Pischuli sha'ar tzedek, and did tshuva on the spot, meaning they came back to Hashem right there and then from a secular life, because it just like when you squeeze, the Jews, so something very special comes out, and they come back to Hashem. We shouldn't know from it. I don't want to live that way. And I scream every Shabbos, and maybe part of my screaming Shema and screaming all that stuff to tell Hashem, you don't have to press me. I'm going to scream without press, please. Can I go for the non-press version? I'll scream without getting pressed. And I think all of us should be saying Shema much louder right now, showing Hashem in all our prayers. Yehei Shmei Rabba. Hashem's name should be great. And we should all be doing that a little stronger right now, showing Hashem that we don't need to be pressed. See another question here, and then we're going to call it, although I'll check YouTube real quick for questions. Can Jews who are not religious still have a claim to the land of Israel? The answer is, I don't think any of us can have a claim on the land of Israel. Only God says who gets the land of Israel. It brings up a whole thing that I'm not going to go into, is a question of can you, if you're a Jew and you're not observant, is it better that you're not in Israel? Then, because it messes things up a bit to have a Jew in Israel breaking the Torah. You understand? Like that's a big issue. So on the one hand, he has mitzvahs, that he's in the land, like being in the land's a mitzvah. The problem is when you're doing the wrong things in the land of Israel, maybe it's better he wasn't. For example, eating an apple, which you probably weren't considering that a big sin, but an observant Jew is going to make sure the apple was properly tithed. So the non-observant Jew doesn't give a damn. And because he doesn't give a damn whether the produce was tithed before it got to the consumer, it's better he lived in Greece or in Germany, or he should live in America, where you don't have to tithe produce. Only the land of Israel has this, where the produce has a spiritual sensitivity that requires tithing. So I don't know, but a claim in the land of Israel, that's the very first Rashi in the Torah, that nobody has a claim on the land of Israel. God is in charge of who gets to be here. And it was definitely given to us. It was taken from the Canaanite nations and given to us. It says, just because, it was a part of that question, just because we're the Jews from Judah, or because we're religious, we have a veto power over other Jews who are not religious, and therefore they have less rights than the people. Yeah, so none of that. This is all complete prophecy. Why we would be the Jews is complete prophecy. It is only because of the Torah prophecy that we are here. We don't have any other claims on this place. No political claims, none of that stuff. Now, of course, the state of Israel itself considers itself with a political claim on the land of Israel, but we don't. Observant Jews don't have that claim. Just going to check YouTube real quick for any comments here. Where do I find comments? YouTube. Maybe I could make it a little bigger and see more. 13 are watching. Okay. Well, it seems that I didn't get comments on YouTube. I don't know why, but there's no questions there. Anywhere else? That's about it. Okay, everyone, please subscribe on my YouTube page. I just realized that I have all these students from the Possible You who maybe haven't subscribed on my YouTube page. So I should definitely ask everyone to do that. And let's see if there's comments here. Comments. Strange. Okay, everybody. Shalom. Atzlacha. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to actually start at noon. It's going to be 7 p.m. each night in Israel time, 12 o'clock Western, 12 o'clock Eastern. I am throwing an event tomorrow night in my house, so it might start a little later tomorrow night. Okay. Blessings, everyone. Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Yantiv.
Welcome. Bye-bye. I want to know who this Ari guy is. He looks so familiar to me.